And that was the introduction to Mr. Robert Woodson Sr. Bob, welcome to the John Fredericks Radio Network. You're on with Colonel Mike.
I'm just pleased to be here. Really pleased.
It's great to have you on again, sir. I want to congratulate you on this award this coming weekend, that you're being honored by the Chuck Colson Center, and they're having a dinner in your honor, and you're getting this award. We haven't spoken in a while. Tell me, what's happening in the Woodson Center?
Well, we're just continuing to expand our efforts to try to communicate this message that the answers to poverty will not be found by emphasizing racial grievance, and nor would it be found by just top-down programs to aid the poor, that the solutions exist where the problems exist, and that is indigenous too. So what we're trying to do, so we are now in 14 different schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've gone through 3 superintendents, so the program is really of self-sufficiency, independence, promoting that among the poor is really beginning to take hold. And so what we're trying to do now is expand it throughout the country and position it so it becomes the primary approach to reducing poverty. And so that's what we're doing now. So we're recruiting financial support so we can take our efforts to other cities, to the city of Indianapolis and Dallas and other cities where poverty and violence is rampant. We think we've got the solution.
And how are you doing with financial support? Is it coming in?
It's coming. No one gets as much as they would like.
Of course not.
But people are stepping up, and I think the recognition that we've gotten from the Colson Center is going to help a great deal. I think conservatives, as I've said, and lately, they lack a ground game. I mean, I think we certainly have the proper values, we've got the proper passion, but we don't have a ground game, and the left does. Mm-hmm. And so I think what the Woodson Center does represents a ground game. I mean, people want to see values in action. They want to see that in the embrace of conservative values really produces a superior life. And I think our grassroots Josephs, as I call them, have demonstrated by their actions that once you embrace a responsible life of self-discipline, of a personal responsibility, and the consequence is that you're no longer a predator, that it produces redemption. Redemption and transformation is a prerequisite for opportunity, to take advantage of opportunity. Opportunity does not produce redemption and transformation. You must become transformed and redeemed, and then opportunity helps. And that's why the traditional approach to reducing poverty has failed, because we think the problem is we need to parachute in programs, better housing, welfare, social services, wraparound services to a person who's suffering from some moral deficits will only injure them with the helping hand. That's not politically correct to say. Mm-hmm. But when I say this before hundreds of grassroots leaders, I get a standing ovation, because they know, unlike those who purport to represent them, that the truth is that they have to be agents of their own social uplift, that no one should do more for you than you are willing to do for yourself.
Well, Bob, isn't
no one should.
The scripture says, be renewed by transforming the mind, right?
Be renewed by transforming the mind, yes. Mm-hmm. And what Jesus did was when he challenged those who doubted him, and I always use John the Baptist, when they sent his servants to him and said, are you the one, or shall we look for another? He didn't respond with a resume or a white paper. He responded by healing in their presence and mm-hmm. told them to go tell him what you saw. Mm-hmm. And that's what the essence of what we do. We must convince people, and Jesus, that was what I mean by a ground game. The ground game is not to offer an argument, superior argument.
Right.
Offer consequence, secular. What Jesus did was secular. He offered a secular response. Well,
the conservative doesn't have they don't have the energy to have the ground game. They think a quick fix is just shut it up quick. You're not going to beat the left. I mean, you could see what they're doing to the president over a year. It comes from every angle. It comes from the media. It comes from the left. It comes from the progressive. It comes from every avenue, correct? And yet he's battling. He's like an octopus. He's got all these tentacles out there, and he just can't focus domestically one time or foreign policy another time, But what's the number? I think, Bob, it's 20 since the Great Society of LBJ. What, 22 trillion has been spent?
$22 trillion.
That's
more money than is spent on the execution of every war.
Yeah, 22 trillion. We have a deficit of what, 26 trillion now?
Yes.
Okay, so we're almost equal to the deficit. We spent 22 trillion, and we're no better off than in the 60s.
No, the biggest decline. I mean, we're no better off than we were, because 70 cents of all of those dollars go not to the poor, but those who serve poor people. They ask which problems are fundable, not which ones are solvable. Mm-hmm. And so we've literally created a commodity out of poor people. Yep,
I heard you speak. I heard you speak that once before you said that.
Yeah, we have. If your income depends upon my being dependent, what motivation do you have to help me to become independent?
Mm-hmm. And how many of these civil servants are statewide or federal that are making an income and a retirement
Exactly. So we have a structural disincentive for reducing poverty in the country, and that's why we must change this calculus. And the way you do it is to devolve more responsibility away from the government directly into the hands of the people suffering the problem, and then let them. And we've demonstrated. For instance, when we go into a community, and we were able, and I'm going to highlight this, we reduced gang violence in a school, and so that attendance is up, expulsions are down, trips to the hospital are no longer taking place. That's a tremendous economic savings. Mm-hmm. So the way we reduce the cost of poverty in America is to reduce the need for those services. And the way you do that is change the behavior of those who are been using services. And that's what we have done by reducing violence and promoting civil order in these communities.
On the grassroots level, are you dealing with let's say city councils, or how do you deal if you go in Indianapolis? How do you deal with them?
So in fact, I took some members of city council with me to another city so they could witness firsthand what happens when these kind of initiatives take place. Mm-hmm. So I've literally taken members of city council. I've taken assistant chiefs of police. I literally put them on a plane and taken them to say, walk with me in these communities, talk with your counterparts here, and see firsthand how the dramatic changes that are occurring. And as a result of that, I think I just met with the chief of police in the city of Indianapolis. We spent about 2 hours, mm-hmm. and also met with the chairman of city council in Indianapolis to share with him these successes, and we're being welcomed now to come in, and I'm linking them with the grassroots leaders in their own city, so that the Woodson Center serves as a catalyst to bringing together people in the community, together with people in government and also corporate leaders too. So we try to bring about a mix of people, so that these grassroots leaders can get the kind of financial support, but also political support they need. I think there's a real thirst on the part of the American public for non-polarizing solutions to problems.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I really salute you. I mean, you're doing a great work with that Woodson Center. I heard you speak at a conference last year, and you just had them up off their seat. You remember you were speaking to people in public housing. And I think you were the guest speaker of the event. And these people were expecting the handout. And when you told them it's a hand up, they were out of their seats. They never heard it before.
Right. Right. You know, I tell people I can give the same speech to low-income blacks, whites, and upper-income people and get the same response because most people know, you know, most people are pretty common sense. What I tell people that I try to make common sense commonplace again. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're on the Common Sense Radio Network. That's what John, he says, no nonsense, just common sense. That's
right. Common sense. That's what I try to promote, and people are very open to that. But conservatives have got to begin to promote people in these communities who embrace this idea. For instance, I was telling Ruth last week. There's a black mother of two girls who, for 3 years they were in high school, she slept in her car and slept in homeless shelters, and the girls studied by the light of a cell phone.
Wow.
And yet, when they graduated from high school, one graduated valedictorian, and the second one salutatorian, and they started college as sophomores because they took so many advanced placement classes.
Amazing.
They should be the centerpiece of every conservative banquet.
Absolutely.
They should be made a poster, a family, for people in support of self-sufficiency and conservative values. Mm. And I can identify others in these communities that are in poverty but not of poverty, mm-hmm. but have gotten out because of self-determination, all of the things that we as conservatives say we believe in. Then if so, then why don't we join with that mom? Why don't we, at our banquets, look for people like this and then support them and then use them as evidence to others that this is what we stand for?
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, when we're off, I'll contact your secretary. I want to know who these girls are, and we can help them out.
I will be delighted.
Yeah, we have to help people.
There's another young man who was homeless, a young black guy who was 18, was homeless, and borrowed his brother's bicycle and bicycled 6 hours across the state of Georgia with a little tent on the back of his bike. And he pitched a tent in this junior college that he wanted to attend. And 2 white police officers came up in the middle of the night and to find out why he was there. And when they found out, they put the money up for him to go to a motel.
Wow.
And then contacted another person who owned a Pizza Hut and said that to help him, he says, I don't want a handout. I want to work.
Nice.
And when they posted this young man on the Internet, they raised $86,000 in 4 days.
Amazing.
And the president of the college let him move into the dorm, and he said, I'm going to use this money wisely and pay my tuition, and he thanked everybody. See, these are the kind of stories conservatives should be searching for.
Absolutely, and you should be on more radio stations talking about it. I mean, every day it's the same nonsense. It's, you know, I'm sure you're never invited on NPR, right? I mean,
oh no.
Never. Yesterday I drove down here. It was the first time I drove down here, Bob, in a while, where I can get down here in a couple of hours. Normally it's like 6 to 7 hours of traffic, but I drove down. It was Mother's Day. I was flying, so I have to listen to the other side what they're saying, and the whole article yesterday was an hour and a half on NPR about poverty in Ohio. And they were doing poverty in Ohio with this guy that's been talking about poverty since Peter Jennings was on ABC News. They had the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all the way up to now. And it was an African-American woman who was the reporter with this old white guy. He's got to be probably 70 now. And, he's saying, well, it's worse now than ever. And you know what he discovered after 30 years? After 30 years, he discovered why there's so much poverty in Appalachia and a part of Ohio. It was misogynist and racism.
Right, and see, but let me just say, I'm also not a regular on Fox either.
I know. I know.
A lot of people on the right, they have become part of the race grievance industry also.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
All they do is talk about, by bringing some of these Looney Tune people on who are black, who are talking about racial grievance, and then they become the foil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Look, we pay tax dollars for NPR, so we should have equal time.
I agree.
There is a new program I saw on PBS. I'll send it to your secretary. It's a former reporter for a magazine and a young woman who worked for Glenn Beck, and they're trying to put a right spin on this show. Because Trump is now elected, and they want to show, hey, we got 27,000 shows. We'll give you one, But it was pretty good. I watched it, and they were talking to T.D. Jakes. They had T.D. Jakes on. And it was a good conversation. It was a nice conversation. But that's a show that you should be on. And I know who you are, and I know what you do, but a lot more people need to know who you are and what your organization does. And the reason I have you on today is to congratulate you. And I'll probably pop up, if I'm in the area, I'm going to pop up at the dinner and shake your hand. And I really want to give you a big round of applause and a salute, because you deserve it and you do a great job.
Well, I appreciate this time, and thank you for your words of encouragement. I look forward to meeting you.
All right, sir. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you. Anytime.